Hello again, traders, and welcome out. This is Ankit from Maverick Currencies here, and this is a quick preview on the Bank of Japan rate statement that's due tonight. This has been a pretty busy week. We had a lot of central bank announcements, and we had an ECB today, and earlier this week we had Bank of Canada. So now here we are with the Bank of Japan, and again, the expectation really is not that high for this report. And the reason why is that this Bank of Japan is really facing or fighting this losing battle to keep the yields at 0.25%. So if you really go and take a look at Japanese yen to 10-year yields, this is where they call it yield curve control, and they're trying to just keep the rates or at 0.25%, and anytime they have to go above it, they have to come in and buy the bonds. So this, again, that's the only way to keep the yields stuck at 0.25%. So you can see how we have been moving or trading in this upper band of 0.25%, and there have been times where we've seen some sort of relief, but now here we are back at the same level. So at this point, there's not really much the Bank of Japan can really do. I mean, we have seen the Japan come in and do intervention. So the currency intervention is one of the tools the central bank uses to curb this move in the yen. And as you can see that here we are going back to the last meeting on September 22nd. Just right after the Bank of Japan decided not to make any changes to their policy. And this is the kind of price action you need to watch out for. So this was the initial report. And after that, you can see that the price action, since they didn't make any change, the yen started to fall once again. So earlier in that morning at about 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, they had to come in and perform the intervention. So you can see that it initially provided a bit of a catalyst or a boom for the yen, which again kind of went away, as the time started to progress. So here we are, fast forward, going to last week. I mean, we have seen multiple attempts for the Bank of Japan once again to intervene in the markets, and each time they intervene, it's not really providing that long-term relief. They provide a shorter-term relief, but here we are, the back of the same thing. So going into tonight, we are not expecting for Bank of Japan to make any changes. If you're looking at the price action, it's not really telling you there's any sort of built-in expectation that Bank of Japan is going to make a change. But if they do make a change, I think that's really where the big movements will happen in the currency market. But again, the likelihood for that is pretty low. They seems to be very committed to this yield curve control and continues to do this bond buying program to kind of continue yielding this yield. So let's talk about possible case scenarios. What can we expect from this Bank of Japan meeting, and where can we find decent setups? So as we take a look at this Japanese yen currency basket, so looking at the Japanese yen against the major other currencies, so notice that we are just testing a support that was established in September, and we actually kind of low basing around this level. So at this point, there's nothing really showing us that the yen wants to go higher. I mean, yen is at a very historical level, so we definitely recognize that this is really stretched far out for the Japanese yen. I mean, if you just want to take a look at how much yen has weakened this year, I mean, take a look at the percentage change from the highs or where we started off this year to where it is right now. Now, on a currency basket itself, that's a 14% drop. I mean, that's a massive move that we haven't seen yen make. But this is, again, the direct result of this monetary policy divergence. We have the FOMC raising rates. We have ECB, even the Swiss bank that was more on the negative side. They did come out and actually raise rates, back in June, which really surprised the markets. So you can see that when there is a big surprise, nobody was expecting Swiss bank to make a change, especially ahead of the ECB. That's where the biggest move will happen. So I won't be surprised if or when they do make a change to the policy, you get a move like what we saw back in the yen by Swiss franc. So let's talk about possible case scenarios. Do I love it on the short side? Do I love it on the long side? I personally don't want to get short unless we break below this support area. So you can see that we are trading within the range, But once it breaks its support, I'll be more interested in making that trade. But right now, not really interested in that. Do we want to buy it here? Absolutely not, unless we see a change from Bank of Japan. So let's take a look at decent setups here. So let's just start with things like dollar yen, which is what really the Bank of Japan is trying to curb, is the exchange rate. 150 was their level that they were watching, and that's exactly where they intervened. So as you can see right now, we've seen the dollar yen cross has come down to this 146 area. So it looks like the dollar has been a little bit more weaker than the yen, which is again a positive sign for the yen in the short term. But going back to what was the expectation last meeting, you can see that the last meeting we had the dollar yen was just going sideways, and we got that initial move and the intervention. So I think that's one of the things that will probably continue to be a little bit more of a risk in the markets is the Bank of Japan to come back in and continue intervening. Now, dollar yen, you can see that there's a very important level of resistance. It's at 145, which is now the support. Prior resistance is now the support. So 145 is a very important level of support. If it breaks that, and if we actually break below this 50-day moving average, then I think I'll be interested in making the trade in the dollar yen. But right now, as you can see, it's kind of stuck in between the 20 to 50, not really looking to make a trade on this. I mean, maybe we can look for this on the long side, but on the short side, we need to break this 145 area. So let's take a look at all the other yen crosses and see, okay, what else looks the best. I mean, you can see that the euro again today came out with their rate hike. And you can see the euro did not really result into a higher currency. So at this point, again, if you look at the chart on the daily, we're still the breakout still remains in place. So what we're getting is a little bit more of a sideways chop, but not really getting a clear direction. If I had to really take a yen long, I really like yen against Swiss franc. Against Swiss franc, it's one of those currencies that are actually consistently moving lower. I think I like the fact that if it does break the support at 146.58, I like further to the downside. But that's only 100 pip from that support. So that would be, again, the setup that I would be interested in, especially if the yen strengthened. But I think if the yen weakens, then it really leaves a lot of room for a lot of other currencies to kind of focus on. For example, if you take a look at pound against the yen, pound is consistently doing well. We got a nice little breakout here and a lot of consolidation going into this. I think if they don't make any change, I wouldn't be surprised if the yen start to weaken again. And I think at that point, these are the setups probably would look the best. We still have certain areas to clear. For example, Aussie yen, we got the resistance at 95.75. So that doesn't look like it's ready to break out. I mean, Kiwi yen is kind of muffled in between here. So really, looking at the long side in any of the yen crosses, pound yen looks the best. On the short side, I would say I would pick the Swiss franc yen. We can also take a look at CAD yen as well. So right now, again, drawing any sort of technical setups here, there's nothing as clear. So I think this is where expectation, like I said, I'm not really planning on making a trade on this unless there's something. We always need to be watching out for these central bank events. But as far as the technical goes, I think you always want to watch out for any sort of surprises. They can make a change, and if they do make a change, that could cause a lot of movement. But again, the probability for that is pretty low. So I think outside of the yen, we'll probably have better picks outside of the other currencies as well. I think yen is one of those currencies that has been very much a one-sided trade for the entire 2022. Eventually, it will come to a pause or a break, and then I think at that point we'll want to take part of that. But I think until that, we just have to kind of stay on the sideline and wait for the big move to happen. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Enjoy your rest of the evening. Again, the timing wise, usually the Bank of Japan, the statement comes between 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 11:30 p.m. So it's not a definitive time. So in between those hours, like you'll probably be getting some report, some movement here, and then we have the Bank of Japan press conference, which kind of follows a couple hours later. I think last one we saw at 2:30 in the morning. So again, not expecting much to happen unless there's something they would want to throw in the towel and say, hey, we can't fight this yen further slide, so we got to take an action. So I'll be on the lookout, but not really looking to pull the trigger unless we see something different. Well, thanks for joining. Have a good evening. We'll see you in the next update. Cheers.